Republicans are trying to distance themselves from the president implicitly threatening violence to stay in office, as he did when he refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. But the way that Republicans are trying to distance themselves from that odious comment is extremely unnerving in and itself. The theme from Republicans is less, well, the people will decide who our next president is after we count every vote, and the winner of the Electoral College will be the next president. And it seems a lot more, we will abide by the decision of the courts. But the courts are like a real emergency backstop here. The courts should not be the main plan. Lindsey Graham, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said, quote, people wonder about the peaceful transfer of power. I can assure you it will be peaceful. Now, we may have litigation about who won the election, but the court will decide. And if Republicans lose, we'll accept that result. This is particularly unnerving after the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when the president and Republicans are all saying we need to ram through a Supreme Court justice so that that person can rule, presumably in our favor, if there is an election lawsuit.
An equally divided court 4-4 can't decide anything. That could make this presidential election drag on weeks and months and well into next year. That is an intolerable situation for the country. We need a full court on Election Day, given the very high likelihood that we're going to see litigation that goes to the court. We need a Supreme Court that can give a definitive answer for the country.
With all of the talk about universal, unsolicited mail-in balloting, where we see states around the country that are now extending the deadline, there is a possibility that election issues may come before the Supreme Court in the days following the election, and all the more reason why we should have 9 justices on the Supreme Court to be able to resolve any issues that may arise then.
Here with me now, one of those senators who will vote on the Supreme Court confirmation, Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat of Massachusetts. Great to have you, Senator. First, let me just get your response to this line, this sort of, I find it strange line from some of your Republican colleagues about, well, you know, we'll listen to the courts, and the courts will decide, and we also need to get this justice on the court because the court's going to decide the election, as if that's a kind of fait accompli. What do you think when you hear that?
So, you know, let's start with Donald Trump. When Donald Trump says that he is not necessarily going to accept the will of the voters, he's flirting with treason. He's saying peaceful transition of power doesn't matter to him. All that matters to him, once again, is Donald Trump and whatever Donald Trump wants. And for Republicans, once again, to step up, these Republican senators, to enable him in that, to support him in that, and to start to talk about the November 3rd election as if this isn't about voters getting their choice, but it's about Supreme Court justices getting their choice, means that they are a party to it. And that means to me that come November 3rd, we need to hold them all accountable. And when I say hold them all accountable, I mean Donald Trump. I mean those Republican senators. I mean those Republicans up and down the ballot. And we need to not just beat them by a little bit, the idea that they can go litigate when it's close. I mean, beat them big. That's what we got to do.
You know, there was, after the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, there's a sort of open question about, okay, well, what now? And relatively short order, it looked like Mitch McConnell assembled the votes he needed to move forward. Lindsey Graham has assured us that, sight unseen, the nominee has the votes. And then the question, you're shaking your head. By
the way, giving a new meaning to the word advice and consent.
Yes,
what
exactly.
The Constitution of the United States requires. Right. Lindsey Graham has simply said, Donald Trump has my proxy on this. Senate doesn't need to look at it. If the president's good, Lindsey Graham is good. Man, there's a man with a spine kept in a box somewhere else, because he certainly doesn't have it to exercise for himself.
Well, then let's talk about spine and about fighting here. I mean, there is some sense. I get that there's no magic button, and I get that they probably have the votes. But there is some sense of, like, what do you do, right, as a Senate minority? Do you not agree to unanimous consent? Do you insist on quorum calls? Do you not vote for judges? But my understanding is in the last 24, 48 hours, all that stuff has happened, right? I mean, the Senate is functioning normally. I think there was a confirmation vote on a district judge today, 93-2. I'm not sure how you voted. But there is kind of normal business happening. Like, explain to me why that is happening.
Look, we need to use every tool. And there are a lot of tools that Democrats have to try and fight this. We got to be strategic about how we use them, but it can't be business as usual in the Senate. We need to think seriously about everything we can do to try to slow this down and to show how illegitimate this whole process is. Look, the continuing resolution could have been voted on yesterday, but we didn't. We said, nope, we're going to run it for the full length of time that it takes. And yeah, it'll be voted on, but it's going to be next Wednesday. We're going to pull this out. That's why I'm still here in Washington. We're going to use every tool we've got. But grassroots energy is crucial in this kind of fight as well. The more energy injected into this, the more nervous the Republicans are going to get. Look, remember back in 2017, the Republicans thought they had the votes to repeal health care for millions of Americans, and they didn't.
Right.
They blinked. And it's in large part because people stood up and said no. Well, to me, that's what this is. This is another fight over the vote to repeal health care for millions of Americans. That's going to be in front of the Supreme Court in November. So we need to fight just as hard as we did back then, because now the stakes are even higher.